Hello, everyone. This is Eleanor Rigby. I was sitting in my sunroom this morning holding this small, tarnished silver key. It doesn't go to anything anymore. The house it opened was sold 20 years ago, but holding it in my palm, I could almost smell the floor wax and the jasmine tea we used to drink on Tuesday nights. It's funny how a little piece of metal can carry the weight of a whole lifetime. I've lived many years, and I've seen the world change in ways I never thought possible. But the human heart, that stays the same. If I hadn't learned the truth about why my marriage stumbled, I would have walked into my twilight years with nothing but bitterness. I don't want that for you. Before I tell you this story, please subscribe. I want to pass this wisdom down before I'm gone so you don't make the same mistakes I did. I want these words to find the people who need them most. I grew up in a time where you fixed things when they were broken. You didn't just throw them away. When Arthur and I got married back in 1964, the world felt like it was spinning so fast, but we were the anchor. He was a good man. Truly, he was. He worked at the chemical plant for 35 years, never missed a day, never complained about the heat or the soot on his collar. He provided. We had the house with the white trim, the 2 cars, and the children were always fed and clothed. By every standard of my mother's generation, Arthur was a good husband. So why did I leave? It wasn't a sudden explosion. It wasn't a secret phone call or a lipstick stain. It was a slow, quiet freezing of the soul. I remember a specific evening in 1978. The kids were at a sleepover and it was just the two of us. The house was so quiet, you could hear the hum of the refrigerator. Arthur was sitting in his recliner reading the evening paper and I was sitting on the 9 sofa with a book I wasn't really reading. I looked over at him, this man I had shared a bed with for 14 years, and I realized I was lonelier in that room with him than I was when I was actually alone. I said, "Arthur, do you ever think about where we're going?" He didn't even look up from the sports page. He just muttered, "We're right here, Ellie. Where else would we go? The mortgage is paid halfway, and the Buick needs a tune-up. We're doing fine." Doing fine. Those words felt like a death sentence. To him, being a good husband meant being a good provider. He thought as long as the roof didn't leak and there was meat on the table, his job was done. But I was starving. I wasn't starving for food. I was starving for him. I wanted the man who used to write me those messy poems during our first year. I wanted the man who used to look at me like I was the only person in a crowded room. In all my 80 years, I've learned that a marriage doesn't die because of a lack of money or a lack of luck. It dies because of a lack of presence. The years rolled on into the 80s, and the distance between us grew like a canyon. I started taking painting classes at the community college just to have something that felt alive. I'd come home excited, my hands stained with ochre and cerulean, and I'd try to show him what I had made. He'd glance at it and say, "That's nice, Ellie. What's for dinner?" I can still hear the sound of his voice. So flat, so practical. He wasn't being mean. That's the hardest part to explain to young people today. He wasn't a villain. He was a good man who had forgotten how to be a partner. He thought that because he stayed, he was winning. He thought loyalty was just the absence of leaving. One rainy Tuesday in 1985, I packed a single suitcase. I didn't take much. I took my clothes, my brushes, and that silver key. When he came home and saw me standing by the door, he looked genuinely confused. He didn't look angry. He looked baffled. He said, I don't understand. I don't drink. I don't gamble. I've never laid a hand on you. I've been a good husband. Ellie, why are you doing this?" I looked at him, and my heart broke for both of us. I said, "Arthur, you were a great provider. You were a wonderful roommate. but you haven't been my husband in 10 years. You haven't really looked at me since the bicentennial. I left that night. I stayed with my sister for 3 months. It was the hardest year of my life. People in town whispered. My own mother told me I was being selfish. She said, "He provides for you, Eleanor. What more do you want?" But I knew that if I stayed, I would simply disappear. I would become a piece of furniture in my own home. Now, let me tell you the truth about what happened next, because this is where the lesson lives. Arthur didn't just let me go. For the first time in 2 decades, the man woke up. It took the silence of an empty house to make him realize that a good husband isn't a title you earn once and keep forever. It's a role you have to audition for every single morning. He started showing up at my sister's house, not with flowers. Arthur wasn't a flower man, but with letters, handwritten letters. He'd write about the things he missed. He'd write, "I missed the way you hum when you're making tea." He'd write, "I saw a bird today that reminded me of that painting you made. The one I didn't really look at. I'm looking at it now. It's hanging in the hallway where I can see it every day." Young people today might not understand this, but back then, we didn't have the words emotional labor or validation. We just had the work. And Arthur finally decided to do the work. We didn't get back together right away. It took a year of talking, really talking. We had to learn how to be strangers again so we could learn how to be lovers. Experience has taught me that love isn't a feeling you have. It's a decision you make every morning. You have to understand that your partner doesn't just need your paycheck or your presence in the room. They need your curiosity. They need to know that you still find them interesting after 40 years of hearing the same stories. I see so many couples now sitting at restaurants, both of them staring at those little glowing screens in their hands. They are together, but they are miles apart. They are making the same mistake Arthur made. They think that because they are sitting in the same booth, the relationship is safe. I promise you it isn't. A marriage is a living thing. If you don't feed it, it will starve and it will crawl away in search of light. If you're listening to this and you feel like you're doing everything right, you're working hard, you're staying faithful, you're being good, I want you to stop and ask yourself one question. When was the last time you truly saw your partner? Not as the mother of your children, not as the person who handles the bills, but as the human being you fell in love with. Respectfully, modern dating seems so much about the spark and the vibe. But the spark is easy. Any two sticks can make a spark. The challenge is keeping the fire going when the wood is damp and the wind is blowing. That requires sacrifice. It requires the humility to say, "I was wrong. I haven't been paying attention." Arthur and I had another 30 years after that crisis. And let me tell you, those 30 years were worth more than the first 14 combined. We didn't have a penny to our names when he finally retired, but we had everything. We had a language that only we spoke. We had a history that we had fought for. When he passed away 5 years ago, he held my hand and whispered, "Thank you for leaving, Ellie. It's what saved us." Think about that. He was grateful that I forced him to wake up. I want you to cherish the person sitting across from you. Don't wait for the suitcase to be packed. Don't wait for the house to be silent. Communication isn't just about solving problems. It's about sharing your inner world. Loyalty isn't just staying. It's showing up. I hope your life is full of the kind of love that grows deeper with every passing year. I hope you find the courage to be vulnerable and the strength to be patient. There is no greater reward in this life than being truly known and truly loved by another soul. Thanks for listening to An Old Soul. Subscribe, share this with someone you love, and cherish them while they are here. Life is shorter than you think, but love can last forever if you let it. I'll see you in the next one. Would you like me to tell you about the time we lost everything in the crash and found ourselves instead